Welcome. Thanks for tuning in.
Zonna,
Miranda.
a new podcast.
Yes.
But first, a question, of course.
Yes.
Is there maybe a book you are reading at this moment that you want to share?
Well, actually, yes. So I'm now reading the book, but then the question, what's the name? The name is The Heart of Business.
Hmm?
So I'm now more and more reading books where they have good examples where a CEO chose a human-centric approach and they like financially also turn around the organization. And I already love the book from, this is putting me on the spot, right? So
Yeah.
I know his first name was Vineet, but the book is called Employees First,
Mm-hmm.
Customer Second. That's also an amazing example. But this one, what I'm reading right now, is he turned around Best Buy. So he's the CEO of Best Buy when Best Buy, I think in 2012, they were really in a bad place with Amazon, e-commerce, everything happening. But what I also really like is that he shares his personal journey, where he was an ex-McKinsey consultant, so always focusing on financials. And he has this profound journey where he realized, hey, but the human aspect and purpose side is way more relevant, and then financial comes second. So definitely a tip to read if you like the topic.
Cool. Thank you so much. All right, so today we talk about 10 ways to level up from operational to transformational CX.
Hallelujah.
I love the titles of the podcast. So let's start like we always start. Why this podcast?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned it in one of the previous podcasts, but I'm more and more. I think also one of our podcasts was CX should focus less on CX.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I tend to see, and the reason why we are creating like this crazy amount of content, is because I think we need to enhance the level of CX.
Mm-hmm.
The risk that I'm seeing is that CX is becoming more and more important, but the quality of CX is going down. So the gap is getting wider. And when I was reflecting on that, I felt, hey, so I think there's a difference between CX and CX transformation, which led to, hey, I think you have operational CX and you have CX transformation. And most people I meet, like CX professionals, are sort of stuck in the operational CX. So that's why I thought, hey, let's make it more explicit. What is the difference?
Yeah.
So what is my view? When do I feel it's operational?
Yeah.
And what are the traits of transformational CX so that you can move more into that direction?
Nice. All right. So we start with operational CX.
Yes, operational CX, and maybe also just to add, I think one of my LinkedIn posts recently was, of course, a bit to trigger, but also on a serious note, is that hey, CEOs should not spend time on CX. They should spend time on CX transformation. Right, so I think a lot of that's also one of the reasons or one of the traits of operational CX is that a lot of CX professionals are saying, "Hey, we don't get enough time or attention from C level." And I think that makes absolute sense if you're focusing on operational CX. So just some traits for operational CX, right? If you recognize and you can check, hey, am I in the operational CX?
Yeah.
You are definitely a separate team or department CX. You fall under maybe, I don't know, marketing or a different director. You're measuring touchpoints, so you're measuring a lot. You're measuring channels. You might not be measuring journeys. But also it's mostly focusing on analysis and measuring. You're struggling to get the rest of the organization to go to execution, to actually improve.
Yeah.
Mapping journeys might become sort of a goal in itself, right? So you're mapping a lot of journeys without saying first, hey, let's map a journey and let's start improving. So it's too much of a separate thing. The same with the tools, right? There's maybe too much focus on the survey tool and you hope that everybody logs into Qualtrics or, well, trust me, that ain't gonna happen. So it's also standalone. You have a CX report. It's not integrated. And all these elements explain why, at least from my perspective, it explains why C-level is maybe not giving you the time and attention that you need. Because I think it should not be the case where you sort of feel, hey, I'm complaining, right? The organization is not having enough time. I'm always coming from the perspective, if something is not going as you want, reflect, what can I do differently? that explains that maybe I need to add more value to them,
Yeah.
or I need to speak their language.
Yeah.
So for me, those are, let's say, the traits that I see often, and that for me are a good explanation indeed why we need to level up
Mm-hmm.
to then create value where the C-level and the rest of the organization really feels the value that you are adding.
Yeah.
Instead of, hey, we need to have CX, so check in the box, we have CX team.
Yeah, exactly.
No, we're really doing something that the organization needs and values.
And when you talk about give more value or speak their language, we also have a nice podcast about that. Do you remember the one I?
You mean? No, not necessarily. We have a lot of nice podcasts
That's true.
that
That's
cover
true.
these
But
topics.
it was okay. I will look it up after,
Okay.
and I will share it in the text.
Yeah.
It was something about it was about not bringing your report and say, look, this is a bad satisfaction score. Let's do something about it. But talk with them. What's your problem, and how can I fix it with my CX toolkit?
Yeah, I think that's the podcast where we say indeed CX should focus less on CX.
Okay.
We have
It's the
different
same.
tips. Yeah.
So definitely listen to that one as
Yeah,
well.
for sure.
All right. So let's make the step to transformational CX.
Yeah, so I made a list. So I was compiling the list, and as you see in the titles, I like to have like 5 or 3 or 7, or in this case, it's 10. So the first thing I think that's going wrong, and you recognize that from our drivers analysis, but I think the key is that yes, everybody's measuring something, and they're measuring a lot. But while they're measuring a lot, they're not speaking the language of the organization,
Mm-hmm.
which means most methodologies really are having a challenge to say, okay, how can I help the organization prioritize? Because a lot of them are still using the NPS root cause technique and listen to previous podcasts on what's wrong with that. That's not giving you actually hard steerable data. So it's not telling you, hey, to enhance NPS or satisfaction, giving personal attention will give you 5 times faster the result you're looking for than, I don't know, ease of doing things. And I think people are underestimating let's say, the negative consequence of not having hard steerable data. Because all the rest of the organization, like sales, like operational, finance, that's all super clear hard data. And then either the NPS root cause, or let's say worse, if it's open text or qualitative research, that definitely has its value, but its value is not in convincing other people on priorities.
Yeah.
Right. So when you already discover the drivers, then qualitative research can be super valuable to deepen that. Or if you want to innovate, then service design and qualitative research is super valuable. But step one is to really make sure, okay, how can I create a clear compass, meaning hard steerable information, where all the other departments understand, hey, if I have limited resources, I have limited time, if I spend it on this, then we have the fastest way to enhance the experience of customers.
Yeah. So that's your baseline, right, for CX transformation?
Yeah, for me, it always starts there just because in the last 25 years, so I've experimented, of course, many different ways. And I always get back to this one. Whenever I share the example of a driver analysis, that's when everybody, also the blue, financially driven people, where they sort of sit up and say, hey, this is something I've never seen in CX. This makes CX a way less fluffy, right? Now
Yeah.
I have clear data that I can start prioritizing on.
Yeah, nice one. Okay. So we have 10. We go to number 2.
Number 2 is what we label as a storyline. So what I also tend to see, and that's not necessarily CX specific, also when you have digital transformation or HR is having a specific topic, maybe there's a topic around diversity and inclusion, they are all separate storylines.
Yeah.
And for employees, that feels like, oh, okay, this is like project 385 that's being sent to me down the communication channels. And I think the beauty of CX, at least, right, if we look at it from our perspective with the 3 pillars, which is linked to number 3, you can beautifully connect purpose, employees, customers, but also I can beautifully connect digital transformation. I can also integrate inclusion, right? It's such you're a brand promise. I think it's a relatively easy exercise to do. at least in my brain, because my brain just doesn't function in by just focusing on separate things, right? I need to have the whole story to then dive into the details. But also for the rest of the organization, even if you're implementing a new CRM system, right, connected to, hey, once we have that, we can create more time for you to spend so employees to spend on quality things like giving customers more personal attention. So I think everything you're doing, and I think CX can be the perfect glue, is make sure that it's one integrated storyline that combines strategy, your vision, your values, the different projects that you are running, so that employees understand, okay, there's some logic to this.
Yeah, exactly. This is how it's connected. This is how it's going to help us. This is why we are doing this.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Good one. Number 3.
Number 3, as I mentioned, the pillars, right? Yes. So the pillars for successful CX transformation is in the end to create human centricity, meaning purpose, employees, and customers. And I think here there are several things to dive into, but one is that I think everybody by now understand that purpose matters. And also more and more books on CEO level are connected to purpose and personal purpose, but still it can feel a bit abstract. So for me, one of the learnings from the last couple of years as well is that what I've discovered is our transformation programs always start on the customer side, even though purpose and employees are connected. Because what do we tend to discover? We tend to discover that the number one driver on the customer side almost always is this human element. Give attention, be there for me, treat me with respect. And that specific topic is something that really connects to the purpose of employees, why they once thought, hey, this is why I want to work at company X. So then instead of having this very abstract thing called purpose, you start already working on it, right? Employees are more energized because they're working on the things that matter to them, that impacts customers. And then you have a more, let's say, subtle way of maybe deepening, right? And maybe do exercises where you help employees figure out their own personal purpose, or to have a sort of redesign of the purpose statement of the organization, so you can really connect everything. So, okay, if my personal purpose, I don't know, is working with people that need to go to the food bank, and the company's purpose is to have an impact on society, then I can bring my personal purpose to work, and actually we can help strengthen each other. Right. So I think if you can create that sort of culture, then you have the best of, I would say, both worlds, but maybe all 3 worlds: the customer, the employee, and the purpose side. So I think also here, I think what C-level resonates with purpose, employees, and customers. I think nobody debates that this is something that's necessary to differentiate, but they struggle with, okay, but how do I do that?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's, with making it super tangible while connecting to the bigger storyline, is a really concrete way to speak their language also on, let's say, the soft side of CX transformation.
Yeah, nice. All right. You already talk about leadership. I think that's the next one, number 4.
Yeah, so leadership. So one of the things that I tend to see is that there's a focus. There's maybe too much focus on, let's say, C-level and CEO, the top layer. And of course, they're trying to activate the employee level. But what I think is what we need to add is most organizations have like a senior or team leader, manager, maybe director or senior management. So 3 or 4 leadership layers. And I think in order to activate them, we also need to make it specific. So what do I, as a team leader, what should I do to make sure that CX transformation is a success? So I think we need to do it on 2 levels. One is to address that layer as a whole. Hey, let's do a session with all team leaders. Let's do a session with all managers. I think that's more engaging than having a generic leadership something. But also then make it super tangible. Okay, so what activities or habits can I as a team leader do that are maybe different from the list of habits that I as a manager can do? Of course, partially they are definitely the same. And so one of the examples is also that just, I don't know, once a week, ask one of your team members, hey, last week, when did you really feel that you were making an impact on the customer? Or, hey, is there one thing that's blocking you from giving a great customer experience? What can I do to help? So again, to address them specifically, but also make it really tangible. Okay, I believe in this. I want to play a role, but just help me understand what can I do.
Yeah.
And examples that you can just make a list, right? You can make maybe a menu of 5 or 10 activities or habits. And let's say on a monthly basis, you ask everyone, hey, choose one activity that you're going to experiment with for the next 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And you really activate them along the way as well.
Nice. And not only activate them with like habits or something like that, but also with maybe some content or snacks or
Yeah, and also maybe with making it like a video. I think one of the examples I put on the menu was, hey, maybe once a week or once a month, you let's say you ask an employee, hey, what was the biggest impact that you felt you made on a customer or maybe on a colleague?
mm-hmm.
And that's, of course, the impact where you, for example, as a CEO, ask one person.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you make, I don't know, a short email or a short video where you share, hey, this is what I learned from this interaction,
Yeah.
then you can share that, of course, again with everybody.
Yeah.
So I think the activities are, let's say, individual. You can choose them, but with smart communication, sharing stories, making short videos. I don't know, interview a customer while I think I stole this idea from Miro. I think there the CEO has an interview with a customer, which is online, and just the whole organization can just be present and just listen in.
Mm.
I think that's a very super tangible, super valuable way to really make it come alive.
Yeah. Nice. All right. So I'm a team leader. I have my 5 tiny habits. But it's not only about I believe in this, right? It's also about my KPIs and what my manager is talking about. So
Yes.
let's go to the next step.
Yeah, so indeed KPIs and steering. So I think what I personally, one of the things that I have underestimated in the last years is that, well, let's say I was thinking too much from my own DNA. So let's say I'm really independent if I feel that I'm doing something that adds value to the company, while maybe my manager, yes, I had managers one day. I was a very challenging person to manage. So I was always focused on adding value to the organization. So I was not doing my own thing. I don't know, doing a PhD on theology, right? But when I felt that maybe I had, I don't know, KPIs. So KPIs meant sort of nothing to me. If my KPIs were on, I don't know, fixing, what shall I say? I don't know, making things easier. Well, I felt, hey, but we really need to focus on personal attention. Then I would say, okay, I don't really care about the KPIs. I just need to do what I believe in.
Yeah.
And most people are not wired like that.
They care about the KPIs.
Well, I think indeed they care about KPIs, but also, of course, if every day your manager is telling you, hey,
Yeah.
production, or sales,
Yeah.
then I can imagine it becomes super frustrating to keep saying, hey, but I'm sorry, I'm going to do something else. And of course, you don't want to have, like 80% of the employees having Zana DNA and everybody's just doing their own thing. I also acknowledge that part. So indeed, so steering is, I always say don't start with KPIs, don't start with steering because that's a whole debate.
Mm-hmm.
But almost always, once you've done the first driver analysis, you have the first insights, there's this very natural moment where it's time to say, hey, these are the KPIs that you're steering. They tend to be more financially or operational. Let's review the insights that we've uncovered from the driver surveys, and let's see what we need to add, integrate, so we don't have a separate CX report and we have a separate sales report. We have an integrated one pager where we see, for example, the satisfaction of the most important journey, or we see churn, right? So it's also not only survey data, but you make sure that indeed it's translated to also, okay, if we want team leaders to focus more on the team to be more customer centric, let's make sure that their KPIs are aligned.
Yeah.
So it's aligning the KPIs, right? So not hoping that they become more customer centric while you're pushing for something else, but also integrating them. So not have a separate CX KPI list that's not connected to the other KPIs.
Nice. Good one. Okay. So that was number 5. Number 6.
Number 6 is all about the journey and not so much let's say, mapping the journey as such, which is definitely a valuable tool that we still use in all our programs. But I think it's also here taking it a step higher that operational CX, okay, let's map the journey.
Mm-hmm.
For me, transformational CX means that the journey as a tool, so not journey tooling, but the journey methodology, becomes a standard technique for everybody. So in the end, you want to have let's say, any campaign that is started cannot start without checking, okay, but what does the journey look like? Or cannot start without checking which journeys are we impacting. Any new product that is launched, any process that is redesigned, you always want to make sure that not only the journey on the customer side, but also the journey on the employee side is double checked to see, okay, are we optimizing and facilitating our employees to actually deliver that journey that we want? So the journey as a central, let's say, a central way of working, I think, is when you start seeing again transformational CX instead of, hey, we're mapping all the journeys, but it's not really becoming part of the way of working of all the teams that are not in CX.
Yeah, it's a separate team doing
Yeah.
something with this journey.
And if I want to have my journey mapped, I ask the team, please map my journey.
Yeah.
Right? Then it stays a separate CX team, and
Yeah.
it's not part of, hey, but I'm responsible for launching new products. As part of my way of working is whenever I launch a product, I double check, hey, what does the journey of the product launch look like?
Yeah. All right. Next one is really connected, number 7, to this journey way of working.
Yeah, so I was about to already say and journey teams in the previous one, so they are really connected. Yeah, so indeed the team setup. I think many organizations are thinking, hey, should we sort of really restructure? So we have different silos, we have marketing, sales, all the different departments, and should we really restructure around journeys? I'm not necessarily a fan of that. I always say whenever our people are willing to cooperate, it doesn't matter how it's structured.
Mm-hmm.
If people are not willing to cooperate, just reorganizing the structure is not going to fix that problem.
No, exactly.
And for me, using the journey and journey teams is a really organic way to just start. Also, whenever we do a journey workshop, I'm still, and we've done that now, I don't know, gazillion times. Every time I'm still, let's say, positively surprised on how many people that are there. It's the first time for them to indeed look at the journey from that perspective, but also hearing from colleagues from different departments.
Yeah.
Because they're just not organized like that, right?
Yeah.
They're siloed. So only that already, that workshop is super valuable. But also just starting with journey teams, just start experimenting, right? See how can we work together? Is it adding value? And just add that as a layer, right? So don't fully restructure the organization. Just add journey teams as a layer and take it from there. Add the value, sort of prove that it's valuable, that it's adding value compared to the current way of working. The same with the channel team. So make sure that you have this methodology, you learn, you improve, and then they should be independently able to just function as a journey team, teach the next journey team, and then you really are starting to get it in the DNA of the organization.
Yeah. And we will launch a podcast about that one as well.
And we will launch, indeed, depending on when we're going to put it live. It's either already live or it's still to come.
Yeah.
Yes.
For a more detailed deep dive on this journey and channel team set.
Yeah, it's literally how do you build them, right? So how do you design these teams? What's the way of working? That's covered in that podcast.
Yes. All right. 3 more to go. Number 8.
Number 8. Yes. So I think whenever, so let's say the tagline is energy. Right, so I think whatever you do, whether it's journey teams, whether it's sharing the results, whether it's creating tiny habits, if it's not fun and energizing, your impact will diminish hugely. And so going back to operational CX, too often I see CX people saying that, hey, I feel now that when I visit the departments, they feel like, oh, that's Zanna from CX, and she's going to tell us all the things that we're doing wrong. I think whenever you notice, let's say the plus is that you would actually have the self-reflection to notice that. That's a good point. But then also make sure that you change it, right? So you're not judging them. It should be whenever the feeling that you want to create is that they feel, hey, really cool. We have a meeting with Pete from CX.
Yeah.
Because that's always fun and it's always valuable and it's always energizing. I think that should be your aim as a CX professional. So design around it, right? So design around energy, focus on indeed, hey, impacting customers. So impacting other people is something that generally energizes human beings, right? We just want to add value to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So make that explicit. How can you add value to customers, or how can you help a colleague? How can you make it fun and not maybe too corporate and boring? uh, and very tangible ideas are around our Tiny Habits campaign that you can find in a Tiny Habits podcast, where we really create a theme. We go a bit nuts with, goodies around a theme, added videos, add music in the videos, so that people, we never say it's different, but people are saying, hey, they feel
exactly.
It's really different.
Yeah.
And that matters.
All right. Number 9.
Number 9, I think throughout all the bullets there, you can draw the line of, let's say, communications.
Mm-hmm.
So I think whatever step you are in your CX transformation program, think about, okay, how am I constantly sharing snacks that show, hey, this is what we mean. It's also showing that we're serious. It's not the flavor of the month. So think about the example we just gave, right? Just where, for example, the CEO interviews a customer and everybody can join. And maybe you make a snack out of that video and you share that with people. Or, I don't know, on a monthly basis, you ask an employee, hey, what was your most memorable experience in the last 4 weeks? You make a short video, you share that. So just really collect stories about purpose, right? That people share, hey, I don't know, last month I was helping Miranda at the food bank, and it was really energizing. And so also not make it too small and say it should only be, let's say, corporate related videos, but really find stories that enhance the energy, that enhance the purpose of why we are doing this.
Yeah. Cool. Last one.
Yeah, last one is actually maybe more of a consequence of everything else.
Yeah.
So in operational CX, you're really working hard. You're trying to convince everybody. You're pushing. Some people would say you're nagging. And what you want to achieve is a pull strategy,
Mm-hmm.
where departments are coming to you and say, hey, this is so cool. I want to be part of the next journey team or the next measurement. And so number 10 is that you consciously work on, how can I create a pull strategy instead of a push strategy. And for me, the key to that is always that if you feel like you're working hard, it means that for the people you want to mobilize, you're not adding enough value.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, people are super busy, but even if they're busy, if you add enough value, they will see how what you're bringing can help them maybe be less busy or be more efficient. Or we also recently we had an experiment where we also use the Tiny Habits for reducing the perception of workload. And also there, a lot of people feel, yeah, but you cannot reduce the workload as such, which, by the way, also happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we had habits that actually reduce the workload, but also perception. So there's so much you can do, that if people say, I'm too busy, for me, that's always just a signal that, hey, it's what you're bringing right now. And of course, timing is everything. But right now, it's not valuable enough for them to prioritize using your tips, advice, or your tools.
Yeah.
So just have an open conversation, right? Hey, I noticed that, maybe I tried to have 2 meetings with you. I noticed that you're really busy. What can I change? What can I do? What do you need most? And I think that's also linked to the CX should focus less on CX podcast. Indeed, really make sure that you are focusing on business impact. So often when I talk to CX professionals and I ask them about, hey, what have you achieved? What are you proud of? You get a list of, let's say we've mapped so many journeys, we've measured so many touch points. Hardly ever does the conversation start with, yeah, we enhanced the retention of customers, or we saw the NPS increase from X to Y. And I think when we don't make that transition, when we don't make the transition to adding business value and business impact, you will always be stuck on operational CX level that most people think, okay, we should have it.
Yeah.
But it's not really the transformational side that we're going to achieve.
I love it.
So summarizing, if you are the CX professional listening and think, I recognize a lot, I'm stuck in operational CX, don't say I'm stuck. You can take action, right? You're not let's say, the victim of your surroundings. Change it and make sure that you're starting to add value.
Yeah. And just start small, right? Start with just step 1, forget the other 9. Listen to the podcast of how you find the drivers.
Yes.
And just go.
Definitely. One journey, right? Prove it for one journey.
Yeah.
See that it adds value. If you are listening and you're on C-level, then make sure that you're challenging your CX team, so they also feel I need to level up. But level up, that was very Dutch. Level up. But also make sure that you recognize there's a difference between CX transformation, where I have a very active role, me as the leadership team, and facilitate that, embrace transformation, and create the surroundings so that really the transformation side can flourish instead of the operational side.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop. Done. Check in the box.
Let's wrap it up. All right. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
See you next time.
See you next time.